to St. Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord. Glory to you.
Be attentive. The Lord said to his disciples, every one of you acknowledge me before men. I also acknowledge before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I also will deny before my Father who is in heaven. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Then Peter said in reply, lo, we have left everything and followed you. What then shall we have? Jesus said to them, truly I say to you, in the new world, when the Son of Man shall sit on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And every one of you who have left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake will receive 100-fold and inherit eternal life. But many that are first will be last, and the last will be first.
Glory to you, O Lord. Glory to you. Holy Spirit will come on you, and the power of the Most High, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you.
Please be seated. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory.
Good morning.
Morning, Father.
When I was a little kid, I think every one of us have probably said this certain thing. That's just not fair. How many of us have said this? Right? Every one of us, even still as adults, we sometimes say that today. Well, I used to say that to my dad because he would ask me to go and work with him, and I wanted to stay home and play. I didn't want to be 8 years old, 9 years old out in the hot sun mowing grass. Right? But nonetheless, my dad needed the help, and he taught me. And I would tell him, that's not fair. And my dad would tell me in return, son, whoever told you life was going to be fair. The last couple weeks, my son, for whatever reason, has been coming into the bed to sleep with us. Something scared him, I don't know what it was. But of course, obviously, now that he's bigger, it makes it harder for Mom and I to be in the bed. And I told him, I said, please do not get up. And instead of going to the bed, he comes into my chair. And in the morning, my back is often in pain, so I need to sit in my chair because it's the most comfortable place for me to be. So I said, please, it's not fair for you to get up and get into my chair. I need somewhere to sit. And my son, when we woke up this morning, he writes, who says life was fair then? And then he does a little smiley face, and at the bottom he says, sorry. But who says life is fair? Right? My wife found this note this morning, and I thought it was so wonderful. In the epistle reading, we, of course, extract that reading from the epistle reading that was done that St. Paul wrote. Or no, actually, it's in the Hebrews, so nobody's quite sure who wrote Hebrews, but a lot of times it's attributed to St. Paul. But the writer of Hebrews went through and wrote about all these people and mighty people of faith. Of course, we attribute to that because today, the first Sunday after Pentecost, we write and we celebrate about all saints, right? Today is kind of the day that we celebrate all the saints. But the one verse right before the reading, it talks about Samson, it talks about Gideon, it talks about Jephthah, it talks about some of these figures out of the book of Judges. The one person I wanted to mention today was Gideon. If you've never read about Gideon, go into the book of Judges and read about Gideon. But Gideon, he actually puts God to the test. I know a lot of times we say we're not supposed to do that, but for whatever reason, God allowed the test to proceed, and Gideon wanted to make sure that he was the one being called because he was from one of the smallest tribes. And there was this huge army that was coming against them. Okay? This huge army had 150,000 soldiers. 150,000, right? The Israelites had 32,000 soldiers. But God told Gideon to go and face them, go and fight them. And he wanted to make sure, and he put God to the test. There was a thing about the fleece, there was a thing about the dew on the fleece, and the fleece and the dew on the ground, and all about the fleece, you have to read it. But at one point, God tells Gideon to cut the number and down to about 3,000. And then there's a part where he goes down to a river and he tells Gideon, whoever's drinking a certain way out of the river, you're going to send them home and you're going to take the rest of what's remaining down to that enemy army's camp. When God was done whittling down the numbers, there was 300 soldiers that were left. 300. Right? 300 soldiers that were going to go against 150,000 men. Right? But Gideon, he's brought up in this passage in the epistle because it says that these men of faith were able to conquer such great innumerable odds, delivered from the mouth of lions, delivered from numerous armies, delivered from this, raising the widows from the dead, etc., etc., etc. And Gideon went down to the enemy's camp, and with some jars and some torches, they went down there, they threw the jars and the torches down into the camp, and when they broke it down, they yelled and played the trumpets, and because it was in the middle of the night, the enemy decides that they're going to get up half asleep and they start to slaughter each other. They don't know who's bad and who's good. But with 300 men, Gideon, through the grace of God, was able to defeat innumerable odds. Now the other people also that's mentioned in that one small verse is also Samson, who we know wasn't the greatest person in the world. But Samson was able to kill 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of an axe. And then the other person that's mentioned was able to kill the commander. This woman was able to kill the commander. He went in there because he escaped the army because, again, innumerable odds. But the Jews were able to rout them. And by innumerable odds, the guy decides to escape. His name is Sisera. And he ends up stumbling into the camp where this woman named Jael was. And Jael lays him down on the ground, gives him some milk, gets him really sleepy, goes and gets a tent peg and puts it right through his temple, killing the enemy commander. Somebody who would have never imagined could have defeated the commander. He didn't die in battle. But all of those people mentioned in that one small verse were an example. And other people that were mentioned, like King David and Samuel, all these people of great faith. Now imagine the person that wrote this letter to the Hebrews, that's their example. But we who live today, we have examples of people throughout the centuries that have fought innumerable odds, have fought people throughout the centuries, not maybe on the battlefield, some, like Constantine and some of the other ones, who were losing, and because he painted the Jesus Christos Nika on the shields, was able to win that day, even though everything in the favor meant that he was going to lose that day. But all of these people had one thing in common. They faced innumerable odds when they faced the world. And when you have faith, and when you trust God, you're going to be able to face innumerable odds and win despite the numbers that are opposing you. Jesus today in the gospel reading, he tells his followers that if you love your wife more, you're not worthy of me. If you love your children more, you're not worthy of me. You love your parents more, you're not worthy of me. If parents love your children more, they're not worthy of me. Now we're supposed to put God first and foremost, and we're supposed to trust God and have faith in Him. And oftentimes, we seem to think that when we go through these heartaches, that we can just put God aside because we think we can make it through these heartaches, these innumerable odds, by ourselves. And when we go through pains and strugglings with our bodies, oftentimes we end up just staying home and we don't come to services and we don't do the things that we're supposed to do because our bodies are saying not to do it. It's an innumerable odd against us. But if we get up and put aside all the things that we doubt, and put aside all the things that make us fear, we can rise up and face a world that, in every sense of the word, can defeat us with ease. Because this world, like it or not, outnumbers us. It outnumbers us millions to one. And as time goes on, just like Gideon, as time goes on, the number of people on the camp of God is being whittled down. It's being whittled down slowly by slowly, and we are tending to get into more fear as we move on. But the thing is as we're being whittled down, we need to understand that God is on our side. We need to understand that God is mighty in battle and He is powerful. We need to understand that our God will stand up for us in the day of battle. All the things that are happening to us, we need to be able to teach our kids. And when they tell us, who said to you, life isn't fair, just like my son asked me, I can show him that I just let him sleep on my chair. And nonetheless, he wrote me this letter, and I remembered what my dad told me. Right? Life isn't fair. Life isn't fair whatsoever. But with God, He can defeat the innumerable odds. He can defeat all the things that come against us in every way. It doesn't matter what it is. We need to remember that God is our God, and He is much bigger than anything. The one innumerable odd, the thing that was not fair, was death. The thing we must not remember is at one time, death was the end. There was nothing beyond death. And our Lord, when He came down and took on flesh, and He began to preach, and for 3 years He came and chose and whittled down the numbers down to 12 people that were faithful to God, who decided to take faith. And because of those 12 people, more people came, 70 people. Because 70 people, 500 came. And because of 500, we have millions of people that are Christians across the world. But at that time, it was innumerable. They were facing Rome. They were facing their own people in the Jewish Sanhedrin. Innumerable odds. But Jesus took those few men and brought about something. Even though it was not fair, Christ leveled the playing field when He came and defeated death. Because those men, and we too, are able to go out boldly into the world and face the innumerable odds. And if we need to be martyrs, we know that there's something beyond this life. There's something more. And we need to teach our children what it means to be Christians. We need to teach our children what it means to be bold and what it means to have faith. And in order for us to have faith, as I said last week, we need to be able to know who God is. On Thursday, or Wednesday, after I got back from a day of doing house blessings, I got a couple calls. And during the course of those calls, somebody asked me an interesting question. And you're going to read this in the bulletin. He said, said to me, he asked me, Father, I'm at this place in my life where I'm struggling. What is truth? Wow. What a huge question. What is truth? Jesus said, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. And if we truly begin to learn who Jesus Christ is, we will learn what that truly means. We will learn what is truly true. That absolute truth that only Jesus can give us is something that confuses and confounds everybody in the world that doesn't know who Christ is. And as we progress in this life, as we have children, we need to teach them what the truth is, but we can't teach them unless we know who the truth is. What is truth? That's a question that every one of us at some point in our lives will come across. And we're going to need to understand who the truth is, who the way is, and who the life is in order for us to be fulfilled and for us to have the faith to face innumerable odds. Let us glorify and praise the name of the Lord today. Amen.
Amen.